Hey, good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? Happy Tuesday. I can't believe it's Tuesday already. The week is just going by so fast, isn't it? I'm Dr. Juanita Mercer. I'm the founder and CEO of Elite My Heart, and you are watching the second episode of my new leadership series called The Heart and Leadership, where I'm teaching you not only my coaching philosophy, but also about how to lead the heart. And today we're specifically talking about how to lead our experiences. Our experiences. That is the E in heart, which is an acronym. And so if you missed yesterday's episode, y'all, it was so good. And I'm not just saying that, okay? When I learn something, when I'm impacted, I'm going to tell you the truth. Yes, it's my series and my content, but I was so blessed by it. You got to go check out yesterday's episode, How to Lead Habits. Powerful stuff, okay? And probably some new information you didn't even know. So you got to go check it out. And then while you're at it, I mean, you as well go check out Sunday's kickoff, where I talk about why I found it, Lead My Heart, and how Lead My Heart is not only a prayer, but it's my coaching model and a solution. So go check out those videos. You can find them on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook is there. All right. So before we get into today's content, you know what I want you to do. The first thing is to heart this video, this live stream. Okay. Heart it. Don't just give me the likes, give me the hearts. Okay. Give me the hearts. Show me some love. And then comment. Let me know that you're here. Let me know that you're watching. Okay. Then tag somebody. And as I always say, I give you permission to get on somebody's nerves. All right. Because I know how sometimes we feel about tagging, but I guarantee you they're going to be blessed by this. So go ahead and tag them to say, hey, you need to be watching this. And then also share it on your timeline. You can even copy the link to this video and send it in a text, send it in an email. But make sure you share this on your timeline because, again, people need to hear this. As leaders, leadership is hard. It's hard, okay? It is not easy. It is not simple. It is complex. It pulls on everything, but it's so needed. It's necessary. It's worth it. But like everything else, when we talk about purpose and alignment, you just better know you're called to it. Because as long as you're called to it, you have the grace for it. And you never want to outstay your grace or be in a place where you don't have the grace for that. Okay, so that's just my little soapbox right there. I certainly believe that today's episode is truly, truly going to be a blessing to you. So, for those of you who are watching, or maybe you'll go back and watch it at another time, I'm so glad that you are here. Okay, awesome. So, now that you have time to heart, comment, tag, and share, let's go ahead and get into today's episode. Okay, talking about how to lead experiences. Experiences, y'all. We have all, I mean, life is an experience, right? So it's not so much that we've all experienced. No, life in itself is an experience day in and day out. As the sun goes up, as the sun goes down, we are experiencing so many things in life. The highs, the lows, the high highs and the low lows, everything in between is an experience. And some we just go through the motions, it's not a big deal. But then there's some experiences that literally stop us in our tracks. Like just, and sometimes we have to get our footing again. And so, how do we take life's experiences and really through the lens of leadership say like I'm leading from a good place, because we have to really take the time to decipher, was experience just pain or was it also purpose? And even if it was pain, can I still find the purpose in it and use it? Because I'm here to tell you that every leader has a story. Every leader has a story, and every leader leads from their story. But the question is, are we healed or are we not? Because we're still going to lead from that place, but are we leading from a healed place or an unhealed place because of our experiences? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Just a scripture to ground us for those of us who are interested in that, as I am. Romans 5:3-4 says, we rejoice in our sufferings. Let's stop there for a second. Rejoice in suffering. I have really come to understand that suffering is really a synonym for experiences. Somewhere in it all, even in my greatest joys, there probably could have still been somebody around or attached to that did not necessarily consider it a great joy. You know, there's always two sides to the coin. There's always the give and take. And so for me, this scripture is telling me to learn how to rejoice in all experiences, because we know that even in the worst of it, it's going to produce perseverance. Even in the worst of it, that perseverance will produce some character. Even in the worst of it, that character is going to produce hope. But can I add this as a little caveat? If we let it. If we let it. That's what it can produce in our life if we let it. So I am just going to let's sit with this for a second and ask ourselves, are we letting it? What you just dealt with yesterday, last night, maybe even this morning, are you letting it produce that in your life that then is going to impact your leadership? Now, when I talk about leadership, for those of you who might just be joining me, I want you to understand have some schema here. When I say leadership, I'm talking 3D leadership. I'm not just talking about how I influence others. I'm also talking about followership, how I work with others, and how I influence how my leader leads me. Because you do know we do that, right? And then that third dimension is self-leadership. I call it heartpreneurship, because it's the business of guarding our hearts and making sure we're a good steward of our heart, and investigating our heart, evaluating it to make sure that it's a good place to lead from. So again, are we letting it? Okay, let's move on. All right, but I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're with me. So why do experiences matter? Our experiences shape our perceptions, number one. And by perception, I mean that lens that we're looking through something with. It's not just our eyes, but it's our mind. It's our heart set, right? So it shapes our perception. It really is how we see things. It also shapes our biases. Now, people get a little weird about this word biases, but let me tell you what biases really are. They're preferences with a little stank on it. Did I just say stank? I did. Well, this is my channel and this is my episode, so we keep it real around here. That's all preferences or biases are. Preferences with a little stank on it. And that stank could be hatred, it could be bitterness, it could be I'm just hating on you. That really is what it is, okay? But it also shapes our leadership behavior, because those experiences taught us something, but it wasn't always a good lesson. So we're going to come back to that. Unprocessed experiences can distort how we interpret situations and people. Woo. Y'all, I've been dealing so much with this lately, and also checking myself, because it's so true. And I am so guilty of this, that if we don't process, meaning sit and reflect on our experiences and our takeaways from them, what we learn, and how that is now dictating our behavior, dictating how we see things, it can truly distort how we see situations and people. I can recall a situation where this is during my doctoral program. I had reached out to my chair and we were conversing back and forth about wanting to schedule an upcoming, I don't know. I don't know if it was a meeting or whatever, but I just know it was an important process. And he sent me a text back on, what I needed to do, giving me instruction. And I had already been dealing with so much like back and forth and criticism and all this stuff, that goes with trying to move forward in the process, that I read that text message and immediately I was like, no, he didn't. Like, abrasive and giving me attitude right now. Like, what is this? And that's exactly how I interpreted this moment. And I felt some kind of way. And of course, what we do when we feel some kind of way, we tell other people we feel some kind of way. Now, granted, I wasn't, bad mouthing him in the program, but my parents, my sister, like, this is what we do, right? But the Holy Spirit convicted me. And about 2 to 3 days later, the Holy Spirit says, go back and read that text again. And when I went back and read that text again, I said, that is not what he said. That's not what he meant. He was just being straightforward with me. And I just really took it as something else. I mean, it was almost like I was reading a new message for the first time. And I was like, that's not right. So then let me tell you the next thing I did, which we often don't do, but we should do. I went back to every one of those people and I said, y'all was wrong. I was wrong. I know when I called you the other day or whatever, going off on a tangent and venting, I was wrong. I went back and read that message, and that is not what he was saying. And so we have to be careful, y'all, because again, experiences, it's not that my experiences weren't valid and a lot of the back and forth, things changing at the last minute and all that stuff. But in that moment, I had allowed my experience to dictate how I perceived him in that moment, and I was wrong. So we got to sort this stuff out. And then also leaders who acknowledge and integrate their stories create healthier team cultures. And data supports this, y'all. Again, leaders who acknowledge and integrate their stories, meaning now you have an opportunity to be real and relevant. You have an opportunity to empathize, to say, I know where you've been. I've been through this, but this is how I took that situation and I made it a strength, not a weakness. This is what I learned from it, that now as I move forward, I move differently. So let's sit with this for a moment. And I want you to reflect on, how often do your past experiences show up in your present leadership? I'll wait. Often do your past experiences show up in your present leadership? And this is not, it doesn't have to be a negative thing. It could be a positive thing. One thing I've learned about me recently is that I tend to overshare and be truly transparent in a way that probably first started out as a trauma response. I will say that, because of some things that I've been through with regards to feeling left out, not having all the information, people not really being transparent and upfront with me. Is so in turn, I go out of my way to do that for other people because I don't want people to feel the way I felt. But in that, sometimes that's not the way to be. I'm not really protecting myself in situations when I do that. So it's not always the best thing or the right thing for me to do. And so I have had to come to understand that. So, all right, that's just one example. Oh, let's now talk about the importance of our experiences and sorting them out. One reason is because it's going to lead to an expectation. Have you ever encountered people where you're like, their expectations are so warped? Like, I don't understand why they would expect that. It's linked to an experience that they've had, because this is the pathway. You have an experience. That experience now shapes an expectation, for better or for worse. Like, for example, if you've always been around men in your life who have taken care of you, watched out for you, been very chivalrous, very respectful, all of that, then that's going to be your expectation for every man you encounter. And the moment you meet a man who didn't have a man in their life to maybe teach them that or model that, or maybe they just don't even care to do that, your first emotion that's going to come up is, gosh, well, I'm not going to say what I want to say because I don't want anybody would be like, gosh, what's wrong with him? That's so ugly. That's so disrespectful. Why is he like that? And honestly, he's not even thinking about how to disrespect you, but the emotion that comes up. Okay. And then we act out of that. That's the execution. That's the behavior. So you got these 4 E's. And so do you see that connection? Our experience become an expectation. Our expectation triggers an emotion, and then we act out of that emotion, that behavior, that execution. Painful experiences shape unconscious expectations every single day. Expectations also drive how we interpret loyalty, trust, and performance. What kind of expectations do you have for your team? What kind of expectations do you have for your next leader who's leading you? What kind of expectations do you have for yourself? Are you type A overachiever? Everything has to be constantly perfected, or is it just me? Is it just me? Am I just talking about myself, or is that you too? Let me know. But it's like, girl, where do these expectations come from? My sister always tells me your 2 is someone else's 10. Like, bring it back. And so I'm constantly having to redirect and say, girl, like, you don't have to do all of this. Like, it's okay. You can take a step back and still be excellent. But it even shapes expectations for yourself. When expectations go unmet, what happens? Our emotions erupt. And as leaders, we got to be careful that we don't react instead of respond. Reacting just because I'm feeling a certain way, I feel disrespected, instead of responding and saying, let me take a step back and let me understand what just happened in this moment. And is there something that I need to see that I didn't see right away? And it's important that we're aware of this, y'all, because awareness helps you lead with perspective, not projection. So before we move on, just take a few seconds to just take this in. Experiences lead to expectations. Okay. The impact of trauma in leadership. And I certainly, at this point, I want to be mindful and say this. If you believe that this conversation that we're getting ready to have could trigger you, I encourage you to step away and come back in a few minutes. I certainly don't want to do that. Also, this is not meant to be any type of medical advice or anything like that, but just simply a reminder to us the impact that trauma can have in leadership. And so please do what it is that you need to do to protect yourself in this moment. Okay. And if you don't feel safe as we go into this conversation, please step away and come back. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the impact of trauma in leadership. We have to first understand that trauma doesn't just hurt people, it programs them. And let me say that again. Trauma just doesn't hurt me, it programs me, because I'm not exempt. None of us are. You know, in my mental health trainings and things that I've learned, you know, we talk about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, that nearly 70% of people have experienced. Well, when I looked at that, I personally was a 0. Okay. As a child, my trauma didn't come until I was an adult. But we don't talk about AACEs, adverse adult experiences, because that is still happening. And so we have to be mindful of these things that, you know, if we understand the data, that I'm sure is already a little skewed, because how many people are really apt to acknowledge or address or raise their hand and say, I dealt with, you know, XYZ, then we understand that even in every room that we're in, people have dealt with experiences that shaped their mindset. And what we're talking about is their heart set. And that's what we lead from. That's what we speak from. That's what we behave out of. And so we need to acknowledge this. And so sometimes you're not talking to the spirit of that person. You're talking and dealing with their trauma that has not been addressed. Past rejection can lead to perfectionism and people pleasing. I have to be mindful of that. Past control can lead to micromanagement now. A point where people felt so out of control. Now they're trying to control everything. So for that leader that might be doing that with you, or you even see that happening on your team, pray for them. Pray for them, because now you understand that that's probably a response to a form of being controlled in their life. Past chaos can lead to avoidance and rigidity. And we don't get to decide what chaos was and what it looked like. Your everyday could be someone else's chaos. There's a lot of people I've talked to, they're like, oh, you know, yelling was just another, that was just a regular thing in our house. We would cuss each other out, and that's just how we communicated. For me, I couldn't, that's not what I grew up in. I didn't grow up in that. And so I'm very sensitive around communication styles, because in my family, we don't talk that way to each other. I didn't experience that, but for someone else, that was just another day. And so we don't get to dictate or say what should or should not affect you. And we have to be careful with that. According to many APA reports, this one in particular, unaddressed trauma increases stress reactivity, lowers trust, and impacts leadership decision making. Whoa, what? You hear all this? Increases stress reactivity, lowers trust, and impacts leadership decision making, altering the brain's threat detection systems, meaning the amygdala. And I've done teaching on the amygdala before and how it affects the brain during my mental health and leadership series. So if you want to learn more about that, go watch that on my YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Probably not Facebook, because Facebook is deleting now after 30 days, but LinkedIn, YouTube is still there. You can go learn more about the amygdala and the impact of that. But y'all, the brain is literally changing. And so what happens is that now we're hypersensitive to trauma. We think everything is that new thing that's going to affect us, that's going to hurt us. And so it's hard for me to have that conversation, because all of a sudden I feel threatened. This is real. This is real things that we deal with every single day. And it doesn't matter that it's happening in a boardroom. It doesn't matter that you're in a courtroom. It doesn't matter that you're in a church. It doesn't matter that you're at a hospital. you're still dealing with people. You're still dealing with. Oh, now let's talk about how to lead experiences. And with the acronym Lead My Heart, lead means the four core leadership behaviors, roles, responsibilities that we have. That is to love, educate, affirm, and deliver. Okay. So, how do we love experiences? Well, in this case, it's going to look like listening. Oh, when people listen, doesn't that make you feel special? Right. You feel cared for, you feel seen, you feel loved just because they listen deeply. And not just to others, but y'all to yourself too. Because we have to understand that awareness begins with compassion, just the willingness to hear. Okay? Because let's be honest, every day, every moment, we're not willing to hear and listen. So it starts there. E, educate. Now, what does that look like? It's learn how your experiences shape your emotional triggers. Like right now, this is the E part of lead. I'm educating you all, and me too, on how experiences, our pains, our traumas, our joys, all of it shapes our expectations and then can be an emotional trigger out of which we behave, out of which we lead others, out of which we serve or not. And how it also affects decision patterns and learn the different lenses. There was a book, I'll have to go find it and share it, that we studied in my doctoral program about the different lenses. And I think it was at least 10 lenses in this book. It could be elitism, it could be meritocracy, it could be sort of all sorts of things. Those are just the two I remember off the top of my head. But our culture, our backgrounds have dictated our lens. And we got to understand that affects how we see things. Okay. A, affirm. In this situation, it's important that we replace criticism with acknowledgement. This is not the time to say, you know what, you're a terrible person. You need to get it together. Da 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 da. Instead, it can be, I've noticed that when we have, conversations in our meeting and this topic comes up, that you tend to respond in a way that you seem uncomfortable. I'm not sure, but I just wanted to ask, is that what's going on, or am I misreading the situation? Because I would love to understand what's happening and provide you any support that I can, and making sure that you don't continue to feel uncomfortable. That was almost too simple, wasn't it? But why don't we say that more? Growth begins when grace enters the narrative. Woo! Yes, grace. Grace, grace, grace. I had a series also called Grace and Leadership, which is also it taps on dealing with burnout, mental health, all the things. So go check that out too. But grace, y'all, let it enter the narrative. D, deliver. And in this situation, we lead experiences, apply emotional intelligence leadership practice. Because how we deliver is how we practice, how we manifest, how we show up. Okay, how we get it done. So make sure your EI is a part of your leadership practice to ensure your experiences build up and don't tear down. Again, that's with you, that's with others. So that's how we lead. That's how we love, educate, affirm, and deliver experiences. Oh, now let's talk about leading others through their experiences, okay? Because I hope up until this point, you've been doing a lot of introspection, a lot of self-reflection, a lot of exploring, like, where am I with this? So for a second, let's shift to others with regards to followership, okay, and leading. Every person you lead is carrying a story. You got to remember that. It's not just you. It's not just you. Every person is carrying the weight of a story, okay? Understanding their history fosters empathy and adaptability. Understanding it, which means you got to take some time. You got to talk to people, get to know people. And I know we don't want to put in that kind of time, and sometimes we don't even have the bandwidth, but y'all, it's necessary, not just to developing healthy relationships in the workplace, but then those healthy relationships are going to come back and they're going to give you a great return on your investment of time, a great return on your investment of empathy and love, because those people are going to have more trust. They're going to perform better. They're going to be more loyal, more engaged in the work. They're going to exceed your expectations. Now, talk about ROI, okay? And then knowing those who labor among you. Where does that come from? That's the word of God. 1 Thessalonians 5:12 says, know them which labor among you. That's what we're talking about. Know those people who labor among you. Why? Because it begins psychological safety. And that has to be a part of the culture that you're building. That people have a sense of safety, not just within their environment, but within their spirit. Okay? So we got to be mindful of that. Here before we get to the very end to promote my book, When Leaders Love. Y'all, this is a fantastic devotional. If I weren't me and was out here leading and dealing with all the things that goes with the leadership, I would want to be like, I want this book. I would want something that I could open up every day and it centers me, it refocuses on me on the agenda and how to apply love in leadership, which is transformative. It is powerful, y'all. It's not soft, it's a strategy. Now, if you like soft, that's great. But if you like strategy, if you like high performance, if you want to see a great return and be profitable, love. That's not just me. That's not just the word of God. That's data. Okay. So go get your book. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and the Google Play Store, not just in print, but also ebook. So go check it out. All right. So we're getting to the end here. But before we do, certainly want to reemphasize the 3D connection here. Because again, I teach that leadership is 3D. It's not just you leading others, but it's also how others lead you and working on teams, and then also how you lead yourself. All three are necessary, all three are important, and all three of them go together. Okay, they're interrelated. So leadership, integrate lessons from your past to lead with maturity. Maturity. Let's grow up. Okay, you don't have to cuss people out. Let's grow up. You don't have to be yelling and on a tangent and throwing a hissy fit and grow up. Let's grow up. Okay. That's so important. Like, people are not your children. They're not, we're all adults here. Okay. Let's grow up and realize that it's not them who needs to change. It's me. Followership, stay teachable. Others' feedback reveals blind spots. It does. And sometimes I know it's not easy to hear. And sometimes it's not easy to receive. But there was this one training I did on, oh gosh, what was it? Positive something. But anywho, the one takeaway I had from, I mean, never mind. It was an interesting training. So I think it's good that I don't remember it. But the one takeaway I have from this whole thing that was in one video for like 1 second, this guy says, even if you don't like what they said or even how they said it. Let's be real. Take the 10% of it that that was right, that was true, that you could learn from and run with it. Okay. And so that's how we have to be. I love that. And so kudos to him. Entrepreneurship, lead yourself with compassion and accountability. I have a book in progress called, actually, I forget what I named it. This is Wielding Your Power. I think that's what it's called. Wielding Your Power. How to grow and self-accountability or something like that. What it comes from is the series I did. Y'all, you catching on? You got to go check out my YouTube channel. 31 Days to Self-Accountability. It was called Powerful. Go check it out. Just the importance of growing in self-accountability, because what Paul said, judge yourself lest you be judged. Meaning if I would do the work, if I would do the self-reflecting, then maybe I wouldn't have so many hard conversations about what other people needed to criticize. Just putting it out there. Growth happens when experiences become education and not evidence of failure. Okay. So that's a unique way of looking at this. And I believe it's imperative that we see growth, experiences as education and not evidence of failure. So here's today's challenge for you. Okay. Identify. What happened to my slide here? Why does it look like that? Okay, that is not how I set that up. Sorry. I'm nitpicky. I'm like, this doesn't look the way I set it up to look. But identify one past experience that still influences your leadership behavior. Just one. Okay. And then I want you to ask yourself, what expectation did that experience create? Okay. Identify one experience that still influences your leadership behavior. And then what expectation did that experience create? And then I want you to rewrite the expectation with grace, truth, and alignment. Okay. For example, let's see. What example can I give? Okay, let's take the one I gave earlier today about with my dissertation chair. Okay, that one experience made me realize that one, don't read a text message once and act on it. Okay, I went through the lesson already, and so now I'm already on the rewrite. The rewrite is, don't take text messages at face value. Give people the benefit of the doubt. If I have questions on what they meant or what they said, I need to pick up the phone and I need to call them and have that conversation with them directly, rather than taking that pain on and then allowing it to influence my feelings, my behavior, and what I do. Okay, that's the rewrite. So my expectation is that if I don't understand or believe there's clarity, then I will get it. So there you go. So key takeaway, lead from what you've learned from your experiences, not from what you've lost. That's what I hope you get from this, among other things. But for me, that was my takeaway from today's episode. I'm going to lead from what I've learned and not from what I felt like I lost. Not that I'm not going to leave from a place of that I lost control, that I lost respect, that I lost clarity, or that I lost an opportunity, that I lost my footing. But what did I learn? Okay. And so I would love to know, what was your key takeaway from today's episode? Put it in the comment section. Let me know. But yes, y'all, I really hope and pray that you enjoyed today's episode. Join me tomorrow. Y'all, look at great. This is really great, right? Talking about experiences. How often do we really talk about this? Again, that's what's in people's hearts. That's what's in your heart. And so, I love it. I'm loving this series. So join me tomorrow as we talk about how to lead admirations. I'm really excited for that one. Again, not really a conversation we often have, but we're going to have it. That's going to be tomorrow at 10 a.m. Central Time, just like today. And just a reminder, if you want fantastic executive coaching service, I know somebody. She's real. She's grounded. She is a little bit of everything. You don't have to choose with me. You're going to get biblical guidance. You're going to get data supported strategies. You're going to get the research. You're going to get the motivation and the inspiration. You're going to get the creative nature of it. You're going to get it all here. Okay, because that's who I am. That's who God created me to be. And I promise that when I started this, that I would not leave anything to the side, that I would bring my full self to the table and give y'all everything I've got, every skill, every gift, every talent to impacting leaders and helping leaders to live and lead with purpose, passion, and power. So how do I do that? Through one-to-one executive coaching. I also do corporate team coaching, working with boards, small groups, group executive coaching in the presentation of the well. So I'll be giving more information about that coming soon. And I do mean soon, like the way Jesus said it. I'm getting there. Bear with me, okay? Consulting on special projects and programs. I do keynotes as well. I do invocations. Please invite me to pray, okay? And then also, I'm going to be maybe hosting an event called Vision and Vibes. We'll see. That's something that I'm praying about, and how would I actually go about doing that? Bringing something strategic mixed with something fun and engaging. So we'll see. But that's what is on the horizon for 2026. And I'm also taking bookings already for 2026. So let's get to it. Get on my calendar. You can contact me via email. You can text or leave a voicemail at that number. And then you can also go to my website. So definitely go ahead and take a screenshot of this, and that way you'll have my information. Okay. So again, thank you so much for joining me today for today's episode. I pray that it was a blessing to you. And you know how I end every episode with this reminder: in everything you do and with everything you have, love God and love people. Goodbye.